Welcome to this week's edition of Bowl Season Stories. I'm Nick Carparelli, the Executive Director of Bowl Season. And each week, different guests from the world of college football join me to talk about current topics in the sport, as well as discuss what they remember most about their bowl game experiences. Our guests include members of the media, former players, coaches, sports executives, and even fans who will share their favorite bowl season stories with you. Today, we are joined by college football staff writer Grace Raynor from The Athletic, Notre Dame football legend Rocket Ismail, and College Football Playoff Foundation Executive Director Britton Banowsky. Also joining me, as she does each week, is our on-air producer, Angela Lang. Good morning, Angela.
Good morning, Nick. Great to be with you to talk about another week of college football. And I hear you got out the house and we're in the stands this week.
I did. I love rivalry games. It's amazing how many we had early in the season, and I'm looking forward to talking to Grace about some of those. But I was at the Air Force Navy game on Saturday on 9/11, which was pretty special. The game wasn't the most exciting game, but the pregame, the halftime, the flyover, the parachutes, the things they did to honor the fallen victims from 20 years ago was really pretty awesome.
Yeah, college football as a whole did a great job of remembering our fallen heroes on that day, but being at that game in particular, I'm sure was really touching and an opportunity to reflect on those that we lost. You just mentioned Grace Raynor, and I want to go ahead and bring her in from The Athletic. She covers Clemson, which is a pretty big job this year with their team. And I just want to mention, too, she's probably not going to brag on herself, but she's a recent recipient of the ESPN Edward Aschoff Rising Star Award. So congratulations, Grace, and thanks for being on the show.
Oh, thank you. Thank you all for having me. I really appreciate it.
Grace, I mentioned that rivalry game. I think the thing that stuck out for me in week 2 of the season was how many rivalry games there were so early on. I mentioned Air Force Navy, BYU defeating Utah for the first time in a long time. That and in that state, that rivalry is the biggest rivalry in the world in that state. Iowa defeating Iowa State. They were both top 10 teams going into the game. And then we saw kind of an old rivalry, Arkansas upsetting Texas, an old Southwest Conference matchup that's destined to be a Southeastern Conference matchup in the future. What was your take on week 2 of the season?
Yeah, week 2, it seems like just kind of it picked up right where week 1 left off. But yeah, to me, Arkansas, Texas was probably the most entertaining just because I think all of us were so surprised at just how badly Arkansas beat Texas. I thought Iowa would beat Iowa State. I had questions about Iowa State coming off that Northern Iowa game. But I think the biggest game in week 2 that we were all, just locked into was Ohio State, Oregon, and kind of what that means for the college football playoff moving forward.
Yeah, I thought that game was interesting for a number of reasons. One, 7.7 million people watched that game. That was the 6th highest college football game in the history of Fox. So college football is as popular as ever. We know that. And also what it means for the postseason. Here at Bowl Season, we look at college football's postseason as kind of having 2 components. You have the playoff component and you have the rest of bowl season. So on one end, the playoff end of the postseason, Oregon's in the mix. Ohio State's been in it a lot. It kind of throws that, jumbles that up a little bit, which I think is good for the game. And then on the other side of the postseason, when you look at bowl season, I was intrigued with a team like Rutgers with getting their second win. They're 2-0. Looking to go to a bowl game for the first time since 2014. Greg Schiano's first time around there, he got them going on a roll of 9 bowl games in 10 years, but they haven't been to a bowl game in 7 years. So now they got 2 wins. They play an FCS opponent, looking to get halfway to bowl eligibility next week. So you got the playoff side of the bowl picture, and already early in the season, you got the rest of bowl season starting to get interesting.
Sure. Yeah. I think that's what's been interesting about this season so far is that on both ends, we seem to have some fresh faces and some kind of new blood with both the playoff. And then, as you said, some of these teams that have struggled historically kind of building. And we saw that with Rutgers. We saw that with Arkansas. And now Iowa seems like maybe the team to beat in the Big Ten. So I think it's good for the sport, like you said, to kind of have some excitement outside of Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of been one of the knocks on the playoff. As successful as it's been in 7 years, you're kind of seeing the same teams in it. So it's always good to get new blood in that. And, keeping with those themes of rivalries and bowl games, looking ahead to next week, Nebraska, Oklahoma, one of One of the biggest drawbacks to conference realignment, I think, is the death of some rivalries. And when Nebraska went to the Big Ten, they didn't play Oklahoma as much anymore. I'm not sure if they've played each other since. So for them to play each other, that's pretty special for me. Growing up, that was the one of the rivalries, if not the rivalry in college football.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm excited to see those teams get at it. I think Alabama has Florida this week. There's some good games like Penn State and Auburn. There's some really good games this week that should be pretty fascinating. But yeah, I'm with you. Just the history of Oklahoma, Nebraska, I think will be cool.
Yeah. And you mentioned Alabama, Florida. Some people are calling this the biggest game Florida's had since Urban Meyer was the coach. And obviously that has playoff implications. And I go back to, every team is different. Every program is different as they try to build. There is a number of teams that are 2-0 that haven't been to a bowl game in a while. They're playing for their third win. And if you haven't been to a bowl game and you're looking forward to that, if those teams can get their third win already and they're halfway to bowl eligibility, that's when the excitement really starts building and it becomes really, really fun.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we were talking to Dabo Sweeney this week and he was saying kind of the same thing. Like it is wild to think that after this week, we're through the first quarter of the season. So to look at it in terms of being 25% done with the regular season and in some of these teams' cases, 50% to getting that bowl game bid locked up, this season is moving. That's for sure.
Bowl season will be here before you know it.
For sure. For sure. I'm excited about it.
Grace, thanks so much for your insight into week 2 of college football. And Grace is going to stick around as we welcome our next guest. So many people have nicknames, so many athletes have nicknames, but very few have nicknames that have almost quite literally replaced their first nickname. We are so happy to welcome to the show former NFL player and Notre Dame legend and national football, college football champion, Rahi Rocket Ismail. Welcome to the show, Rocket.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Rocket, such a privilege to have you join us. Our goal here on Bowl Season Stories is to talk about your experiences in bowl games, but I want to talk about your career at Notre Dame in general. And I'm gonna set up this first question with a quick story. So your senior year, fall of 1990, I had a buddy from high school, Rob Burke, who was a senior at Notre Dame, and I had graduated college the previous spring. So me and some buddies, we went out to visit him. We're like, we're gonna go for a whole week. We picked a week in October. We had back-to-back home games. It was Air Force one weekend, Miami the next. And my buddy's roommate was the head manager of the football team, Sean Wilkes. And I'm sure you remember Sean. And so Sean decided, all right, I'm going to put my roommate's buddies in manager gear, and I'm going to let them watch practice during the week. So we're on the side just hoping Coach Holtz doesn't tell us to do something. Fast forward to the game, you beat Miami, right? It's the Catholics versus convicts grudge match, right? That you had beat them 2 years prior at home. They beat you in Miami. So you beat them. They're number 2 in the country, dashes their title hopes. Sean pulls us in the locker room. So we're in the locker room. We're like, geez, so we're standing in the corner. Now for the listeners who maybe are younger and don't know as much about you as they should, or even for some of the people that forgot, you and Notre Dame football at that time was it. I'm not just talking about college football, like sports in general. So it's well after the game. The horde of people outside were not leaving. You're like, I'm not going to get out of here. So Sean put you in a laundry cart with the wheels and dumped some towels on you, and you went out the back door. I remember that clear as day. So you could get a head start. It's not as if they were going to catch you if you ran to your apartment anyways, but you got a head start out the back door. So with that story as a lead in, what was it like to be Rocket Ismail at Notre Dame at that time?
Wow. Well, at the time, probably the best word to describe it would have been, and I'm describing it from what I remember as a 21-year-old young man, would be overwhelming in moments. It was overwhelming in moments. And looking back on it, it was as a 51-year-old man, looking back on it, it was probably one of the coolest times of my life, because when I remember when I was young and the first time I saw a football game, I was 5 years old, and it was like everything in me knew that that was what I was going to do. And that's what I wanted to do. And it just, like, if you look at my life, everything that was necessary in order for that to become a reality started falling into place. And even when tragic moments happened or things that looked like they could have sidetracked or derailed the dream from becoming a reality, all of those things work together. And at the end of the day, it was a journey and a time that was also filled with a lot of grace. So, man, looking back at that time, 21 years old, I felt overwhelmed. But now looking back on it, I mean, that was amazing. And to be able to have your dreams, like, so even when you were talking about with Sean being in the laundry cart, I remember going into the equipment room, and it was like, by that time, because it was my junior year and the team was really good, and I was one of the main cogs on the team. And I remember every year after the game going outside, it was one door that went right out, and it's like the people are right there. And it would be several hours, because you don't want to make anybody go away sad. And they weren't really taking pictures back then as much as they were signing little helmets and pieces of paper and stuff like that. And I remember going in, and the door to the inside of the stadium was opened by one of the managers, and they were taking carts out, and they were putting the carts. And I was like, wait a minute. There's another way out of this locker room other than going through the stadium or going outside where the fans are. This was like going into the bowels of the stadium instead of going right onto the field. I was like, hey, where did these carts go? And it was the locker room, our where we practiced and everything was right across the street. And I was like, man, this goes right to the locker room. I was like, go tell my mom to meet me right across at the football offices. And I remember jumping in the car, and like you said, he threw some towels and stuff over me. And I just remember riding underneath all the towels and everything, hearing the people and hearing everything going on. And then he dropped me off in front of the football offices, like stuff like that. Like that was it was fun. And then meet my mom, go for dinner. So I mean, that was a great time. And again, filled with grace. I'm glad I got to experience it. And what's cool now is being able, when I meet young guys in positions where it looks like they're going to probably have some prominence in the world of sports or football or what have you, man, I have, from based on my experiences, I have so many insights that I can share with them now that can help them handle the process better, to lessen anxiety, lessen the stress, to lessen all of the things. Like a lot of times in life, we focus on a lot of the negative things, and rightfully so, because the negative things aren't comfortable. But I can say, okay, this seems this way now. Look at it this way, handle it this way, and it'll be a blessing in your life.
There's no doubt you could be a great asset to a lot of the younger players in this generation, Rocket. And it's great that you see yourself as playing that role. And it's interesting to me what you said. Those moments, those memories, those weren't a surprise to you. You kind of envisioned that.
Oh man, I'm telling you, now it was interesting because I literally, in my first football experience ever, was we went to a Super Bowl party. I was 5 years old. We were watching the Steelers, Cowboys. My sister was actually watching the game. It's hilarious. My sister was watching the game, and as she was watching the game, and there was a bunch of people around, but I was going to go up behind her and like smack her on the back of the neck or something. And I remember right as I was getting ready to do whatever my devious deed was, I looked at what she was looking at, and it just, like, it captured my imagination. And I didn't even know what it was, but I was like, and I asked my sister, I was like, what is this? And she's like, this is football. And she started explaining to me what she was watching. She started explaining to me the two teams. And I remember specifically her, that she liked the Cowboys. She was like, okay, this is my team. I like the Dallas Cowboys. I was like, well, I don't like anything you like. I like this other team. And it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. And it was like, from that moment on, I knew I was going to be, whatever the Pittsburgh Steelers were doing, I knew I was going to be doing what they were doing. And it didn't dawn on me. I didn't know about high school football. I didn't know about college football in order to get to this place called the promised land called the NFL. But it was like, again, things started falling into place, and just being made aware of Notre Dame. Like, even, you and I talked a little bit before the show, and Syracuse played a big part in me going to Notre Dame, in that they were one of the hottest teams, one of the hottest schools, one of the hottest brands back in the day. And then 3 hours south in Northeast Pennsylvania in Wilkes-Barre, man, I remember going up to the Carrier Dome was a big deal. Like, that was like one of the it was like, for us, it was like the ninth wonder of the world, man. They had an awesome coach, Coach McPherson. And I remember the summer before our junior year, going up to the summer football camp that they had. It was probably about 300, 400 kids there, right? And they took us all over to the Carrier Dome. They're like, hey, we're going to run 40-yard dashes. And we're like, oh, yeah. And, when you're a young man, nobody can tell you that you're not good or anything, right? So my freshman year in high school, I specifically remember running a 4.7 in a 40. And I thought I was the man. So now it's the summer before my senior year, and we line up in the Carrier Dome. And I remember Coach Edsel, Coach Wojcik, and maybe Coach Fears. Like, I just somehow remember those guys. And you know how the Carrier Dome is kind of intimate, man. It's like the stands are right there. Like, it can be a formidable place and very intimidating if you're another team coming up there thinking you're just going to walk over the orange men. And I remember the rules were, okay, they just line us all up one at a time. Go, 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 go. And when we would go, the rule was you ran your 40, you would get your time from the coach, you would run back down to start and tell another coach, okay, he told me I ran this, and they'd write it down. And I remember I got up there, and man, I just, came up the block, woo, bam. And when I turned around, I remember specifically Coach Edsel was looking at his clock, and I came up to him, and he didn't even acknowledge me. He looked at his clock, and then he looked at the other coach, and he's like, hey, man, what'd you get? And the other coach was like looking at his clock with a big smile on his face. He's like, no, what'd you get? And they were like, they looked at me and said, hey, man, can you run that again? I was like, okay. So I ran back down. The coaches were like, what'd they give you? I was like, I don't know. They told me to run it again. I was like, oh, he probably missed it. Got down, bam, came out the blocks, boom. And this time, they were like, oh, my gosh. And they started congregating. And then they walked over to the stand, which was not very far, walked over to the stands. And they were like, hey, just go back down with the coaches. We'll talk to you later. And they were 40 yards away. It was like, and when I went back to the coaches, and they're like, what'd you run? I was like, I don't know. They're not going to tell me. And it was like an audible wave. I remember, I don't know if they still do the wave, but back in the day, they used to do the wave. Remember, like, they used to stand up and you see it coming, and it was like an audible wave. And they were like 40 yards away. You heard murmuring like, and then it got 30 yards away and 20 yards away for it. And then when it got about 10 yards away, I'm like, this cat ran a 43. I'm like, man, you would have thought I broke the world's record. And it was like, immediately my coaches were like, oh my gosh. So they got me. We drove back down to Wilkes-Barre, and that got the attention of coaches everywhere, which Notre Dame was a part of that. And I needed that because I literally had, I was if you looked at me, I was under, if you were just like to come and see me in the room, I was very underwhelming physically. So I needed something to get to everybody's attention. So it was like that right there was a major part. And then being a part of the resurgence of Notre Dame, and then the rest is history.
Rocket, you mentioned, okay, so you get to Notre Dame and you're playing for Lou Holtz, and obviously you had an amazing career and you played in some really big games in college, but just what stands out to you about playing in a national championship at the Fiesta Bowl, those Orange Bowls? When you look back at those, what stands out to you?
So what stands out? I think the fact that with youth, sometimes you don't realize how significant big moments in time are in the moment. It seems regular to you, and it seems regular in that we were talking about it and you just expected to be there. You just expected, like, okay, this is what it is. Notre Dame is supposed to be in the national championship. We're supposed to have big games. So it seemed like it was regular. And I don't think and then boom, the moment is over. It's like the game was, and I would have thought that in the next 3 years or the next 2 years, I thought 3 initially, it ended up being 2, that we'd be in this game all the time. And then you don't realize after you get in that game, we played the national championship. After that first year, man, like you don't realize now you're the number 1 team and everybody is like they have a little extra energy to play you, and you don't realize how tough it is. And then the mentality, like I see it all the time, and like colleges will have a game of the century, and then the next week they'll play a team that they easily outmatch on paper, and that if they played up to their capabilities, they beat this team, 9 out of 9 times if they had to play them that way, and then they don't play up to what their abilities happen to be. It's like that dynamic is, we had to go through that at times, and then you lose one game here, you lose one game there, before you know it, you're out of title contention just that quick. So
your game of the century at Notre Dame was only valid until next week, when that was the next game of the century.
Exactly. And that, we used to marvel at how many games of the centuries we'd be playing in. And we would always say, man, 100 years haven't even passed yet. It's been a couple of months and now it's another century-worthy game. And so it was like that used to perplex us a little bit. But exactly, Nick, you're absolutely correct. That's just how it was. But the national championship was really cool. And but I didn't savor it. And I dare say we didn't savor it, I think, the way we should have, and realize the significance of it at the time.
Yeah, well, it's easy to say now, Rocket. I mean, we all look back when we were younger and we think differently. That's what comes with our age, right? It's a little bit of wisdom. Yeah. Well, you talked about the national championship game and how unique that was. Most people don't get to do that, right? We have a bowl season there's a lot of bowl games. They're all meaningful to the teams who play in them, right? Every program's different. They're evolving differently. So you went to that Fiesta Bowl, won the national championship.
Right.
The following 2 years, you had great teams, but you weren't playing for the national championship, but you went to the Orange Bowl. Now, right. Tell me how meaningful those games were. I think about the bowl game experience. You're in Miami 5 or 6 days with your teammates, right? Especially that second Orange Bowl. When that game was over, you were going to be a pro. That's a different type of deal, right? But when your last college game in a bowl game with your teammates on vacation, right? The week leading up to it. Tell us about that experience a little bit then, and then how you look back at it now.
Okay, so in a general sense, because we always looked at a bowl game as a reward / vacation. And I think what put that extra emphasis on it was the fact that, in South Bend, man, the weather's turned. Like as soon as the calendar says it's the first day of fall, or that doggone temperature drops. And hey, the first day of winter, that doggone, it's crazy. So you're always looking for some type of warm embrace from the weather. So the fact that we were going down to Miami was something that we always look forward to. And it's not, man, we were back in the days where the gifts, if you will, weren't as lavish as they are now. And when teams go to bowl games, man, it's like those doggone bowl games, just the gifts alone, it boggles your mind. It is pretty amazing. So we would, whatever the level of gifts were that we were expecting, we get a sweatsuit, maybe some extra shoes. Maybe they give you like a wallet or a little pence, a hat, something that was useful for wherever you came from. Like we were always looking forward to that. We were looking forward to, I think we got per diem. I forget, but the per diem was pretty cool. So we were looking forward to that. And then we were looking forward to, because we used to stay at this place, I think it's called Key Biscayne, because the Orange Bowl was right over the bridge. And man, that was like the lavish life. It was back in the day, they had this show called Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. Man, this hotel was the epitome of that. So it was like, that was something that we all look forward to. And so it was like, I remember what was cool also was Derek Brown was from Miami, and Derek Brown back in our day, like the freshman year, the year before his senior year in high school, he was like the Gatorade Player of the Year, USA Today, full spread. Like he was the man. So when we're going back to Miami, the team is playing well. We beat Miami a couple of those years. Man, he knew everybody. When I say everybody, I'm talking about from Uncle Luke and the 2 Live Crew to, man, maybe pit bull like crazy. Like he knew it. So we could go anywhere in the town and people would, we could skip the line, like that kind of stuff. So all those things we were looking forward to. Plus you had the game and the lavish weather. I will say, I thought I witnessed a beheading at one of the events at the hotel. And I remember one of the hotels had like a man-made pond, or not, it was not more than a pond, but like it was a pretty substantial body of water behind it, but it wasn't in the ocean. It was independent of the ocean. It was still on the hotel property. And they had a little, I don't know how to distinguish the names of boats, but it had a little boat. And when I say a boat, maybe 12 guys could fit in it at one time. It just kind of cruised around. It was something fun to do. And they had jet skis. And man, when you get guys, you're 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, man, testosterone is zooming. You're taking it. You like, all you want to do is go fast. You want to show people how far you can jump and all that stuff. I remember Jerome Bettis was on one of the jet skis, and he was talking to us, and he was like in front of the boat, and he was saying something, and some guys behind him, I forget who they were racing, and it was like they were racing the jet skis, but they didn't even consider that, okay, at some point you're going to have to stop. And it just so happened that Jerome's jet ski was right in front of them as they were coming from this great distance. We're like, stop. And the jet ski went in the air. Jerome is here. The jet ski went in the air. And from our vantage point, it looked like it hit him in the head, and he went under the water. And we were in shock. We were literally in shock, because we were like, oh. Everybody froze for about 4 seconds. And then and nobody's coming up out from underneath the water. So we're like, oh my God, somebody get help. And then Jerome floats up probably about 10 seconds later with a bigger smile on his face, and our hearts start beating again. But I mean, it was fun, man. It was a great time. We loved it. And I'm so thankful for bowl season, because outside of maybe going to different games, man, I don't know that we would have had that experience or been able to afford an experience like that, most of us when we were younger.
Yeah, Rocket, it's clear that you have so many vivid memories, and just hearing you talking about getting excited about the per diem and that kind of stuff. But Just when you look back at your Notre Dame career playing for Lou Holtz, you're a Hall of Famer, Walter Camp Player of the Year, you finished second in the Heisman, all these huge moments. Just what did your career at Notre Dame mean to you?
Well, first of all, you touched on something that was hilarious. And so one of the big things was if we had a bye week, we would go to other universities. They had Purdue, they had Indiana. Sometimes we'd drive to Tennessee State. We'd go all over wherever $15 worth of gas would take us. And back in the day, that would fill a tank up. And so, especially for Honda Civics. So literally, I remember we were driving down. It was my sophomore year. We were driving to, it was like a big Greek weekend at, I think it was Purdue. And we get there and my roommate was from Gary, Indiana. Shout out Rusty Setzer. He's from Gary, Indiana. He was the man in Indiana, knew everybody. And so there's this big party on campus. And I was the man because I knew all the latest dances and I could challenge anybody undefeated to this day. I digress. So all of a sudden, we're getting ready to go to this party, but the Heisman presentation is on, and Tony Rice is one of the finalists who went to New York. So we're like, yo, T. Rice is on. So we turn on the television, and we're ironing clothes and got the music on. It's like, yeah, it's about to be on. And so Tony Rice, I think, came in the top 5, and they were still mentioning names. And then they go, and Rocket Ismail from Notre Dame comes in like 12th place. The room erupted. We're like, oh, 12th place. This is the best. It's about to be on. All throughout the night, wherever we went, if we went to a club, because we weren't 21 yet, if we went to a club and they were like, they were like, yo, my man right here, Rocket Ismail, just came in 12th place in the Heisman. They were like, what? Get in this club. Like, it was amazing. So that was amazing, right? So now, fast forward to the next year. Man, I'm telling you that next year, we were, I get invited to New York. So this is my junior year. I get invited to New York. Like you said, I come in 2nd place. I get back to campus. I'm telling you, you would have thought I died. Everybody was so sad and everybody was so dejected and just like all hope was lost. And they were like, man, it was like the spirit of mourning was all over the campus, and especially in Grace Hall where I used to live. And then it was like, in my mind, I'm like, yo, I came in 12th place the year before, and it was a party. This year, 2nd place, and everybody's like, it's the end of the world as we know it. And to me, I was like, yo, cheer up. I'll be back. You know what I'm saying? But I didn't realize that I would end up go pro, and that would be the last time. But that was interesting. So what was the question you asked me before I went on that rant?
No. Just what your career meant to you. I mean, you just have such rich stories.
So, man, no, my career at Notre Dame was amazing. It was excellent. And then I'm telling you, just so many, man, I really believe that when you're young, man, you can tap into something greater than yourself and believing, desiring, and like there's a time where I believe every human being on the face of this earth can tap into a greater level of significance. And what I realize now is this life is beautiful, but this world is treacherous. And you need help to navigate the world in order to experience the beauty of life. And a lot of that we unfortunately leave on the table because we don't know how to tap into the part of us that can believe, can put energy out that will allow for whatever it is that we desire for the proper things to fall in place to make that a reality. And so I say all that because when I look back on my career at Notre Dame and the things that had to transpire in order for that to become a reality, that's exactly what happened. I was blessed to be able to tap into that, and man, I'm eternally thankful. And I know people, they'll look and they'll say, well, you had this, you had that. Man, anybody who's listening to this, whatever it is that you desire to do, even if you forgot what you desire to do because the cares of life, the deceitfulness of riches, they've stolen from you, that even the fact that you remember, man, I used to want to do this. I used to have an ability to do that. Man, it's not too late. Tap back into that. And man, we can all live our dreams.
Rocket, that's an amazing perspective. I've always been a fan of yours. I'm probably a bigger fan now after visiting with you. Really appreciate your time. We could talk all day here, but we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for being on the show. I appreciate it. Good luck to you.
Thank you, Nick. Pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Rocket.
And Grace, thank you as well for helping me with Rocket and for chatting early on. I'm sure we're going to be, we'll spend some more time in the future. And we're going to take a short break and be right back with the College Football Playoff Foundation Executive Director, Britton Banowsky. Stay with us.
TicketSmarter is the official ticket resale marketplace of bowl season. Nothing compares to the power and excitement of live events. TicketSmarter is the smarter way to buy tickets for live events like sports, concerts, and theater. Visit ticketsmarter.com or download the app today.
Welcome back to Bowl Season Stories. This is a very special week. It's the College Football Playoff Foundation's Extra Yard for Teachers Week. It's an opportunity for the college football community to recognize and honor teachers nationwide for their hard work. And this year marks the first of a new partnership between Bowl Season and the College Football Playoff Foundation, in which all 44 bowls across the country participated in the Big Day for Teachers, which was September 14th. CFP Foundation Executive Director Britton Banowsky joins us now. And Britton, I know this is one of your favorite weeks of the year. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Britton, Nick here. How are you?
Hey, Nick, I'm doing great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Britton, you've been around college athletics for a long time now. You were commissioner of Conference USA for 13 years. You and I have known each other a long time. We've worked together in the past on NCAA committees. I think we even helped start or prop up a couple of bowl games here and there together along the way. But since its inception 7 years ago, you've been the executive director of the College Football Playoff Foundation. Tell us a little bit about that organization and why this was something that you wanted to be a part of.
Sure. So when we built the CFP coming off the BCS, which nobody really liked, there was a lot of marketplace interest in the new playoff format, obviously, and ESPN was a very aggressive bidder for those rights. And we got to the point, I was in Conference USA at the time, where we were about to do the deal. And a few of us around the table talked about whether there should be a community investment component embedded into the CFP. And we kind of agreed that that would be a good idea, that we should be thinking about how we, contribute to the communities that are hosting the game primarily. But then we created a little subcommittee. Jack Swarbrick and Bob Bowlesby in particular were on it. Bill Hancock helped. And we went off and we talked about what was important to us and what would be the right cause. And we came out of that meeting with kind of a clear consensus that the CFP Foundation would be developed, would be created, and we would dedicate all of our energy and resources to supporting teachers across America.
Awesome. The bowls in general, initially the six, New Year's Six games, and then it expanded to a few others. They've been partners with the CFP Foundation from the start. as executive director of bowl season. I'm thrilled, and we're thrilled to have this new partnership with Extra Yard for Teachers, and one that now includes all 44 bowl games that participated in the big day, which was just this Tuesday, September 14th. Tell us, what is the big day and what is its purpose?
So we started this XGR for Teachers Week about 6 years ago, and we basically carved out a week during the football season, not unlike, what happens around the military appreciation and breast cancer awareness weeks. We decided, let's carve out a week to really honor and recognize teachers. And then it was great, and we had great support from our institutional partners and ESPN to showcase teachers. But then as we were in the pandemic last year, we really weren't sure whether we were going to have a football season for a period of time there. But we were watching these teachers do amazing things for their students, converting to virtual learning, hybrid learning, making sure their kids, got the food they needed in some cases. And so we said, let's see if we can maybe put a stake in the ground and get all of our partners to recognize this amazing work that teachers are doing during this really challenging time. And so we decided to do it last year and got a huge positive response. In large part, a lot of people were happy to be able to plan for something because, they weren't able to plan for a football game necessarily. So we got, the universities involved in the conferences and ESPN and had a huge response. And so this year we decided to do it again. And it was yesterday. And the activity level was off the charts for us yesterday. And so we're grateful for all the partners across the country, bowls, conferences, educational partners, ESPN, obviously, partnerships like ours help accelerate the work, Nick. So grateful for that. So, we're honored to be able to leverage the big platform that is the college football playoff for the benefit of something good. And we think, teachers is a great cause.
Yeah, we were very, very pleased to be a part of it. It did seem like it was everywhere on Tuesday. Maybe I'm a little bit not the best judge since I follow all the appropriate people that would be amplifying it, but it definitely seemed like it had a very, very big reach and a very big impact. I know one of the goals you all have is to work with the host committees at the CFP National Championship game each year and really make an impact on the teachers in that community, and one that leaves a positive wake after the game is over. What have been some of the highlights over the last few years for the foundation at the CFP National Championship game, especially working with such great people at the Orange Bowl, the Sugar Bowl, the Peach Bowl, et cetera?
Yeah. So it is great to be able to do that. We tried to evolve the way that we approach our engagement with our host communities. They raise resources to support our cause, but we don't want to do something superficial. We don't want to do something that's not hitting the right needs in the community. So we really take time to listen, create a strategy, collaborate very closely, create a lot of engagement, and then go execute the strategy over a period of time. It's not like we go into a community, build a field and leave. We're there still working years and years after the game is over. So in Atlanta was when we really kind of got really focused around literacy. Kids weren't reading in the Atlanta public schools at the grade level they should be. And the teachers surveyed said that they really didn't have the confidence to teach their kids to read. So we created a partnership with the Peach Bowl host committee, Chick-fil-A, to raise $2 million to train all of the K-5 teachers in Atlanta on the state-of-the-art method of teaching kids to read. It got immediate positive results. And so the last 5 years, we've seen steady increases in the reading rates for the kids in Atlanta. From there, we went out to the Bay Area, where we focused with the 49ers on STEM and STEM education, and really kind of concentrated on developing STEM programming and highlighting STEM programming all across the Bay Area. The Bay Area is a pretty big area. As you know, there was about 80 districts, I think, we were working with. So a lot of times, if you cast your net too wide, you kind of can't concentrate your impact. And then we went to New Orleans, worked with great folks at the Sugar Bowl and Jeff Hunley, and they identified teacher recruitment and retention as their biggest problem. They turned over 1/3 of every teacher every year. So we created a strategy to improve the retention rates of teachers and improve the pipeline, working with colleges like University of New Orleans and others that have teacher prep programs. And then from there to Miami, where we worked on innovative middle school design, and the great folks at the Orange Bowl helped us design that work. And then here, I'm actually in Indianapolis today, and we have some exciting stuff going on, including the build out of the Indiana Learning Lab, which happened during the pandemic. It started with $1 million investment, and the Department of Education has now matched it with another $3.2 million. And so we have a sustainable digital platform that teachers all across the state of Indiana can use to support their kids' needs. So it's stuff like that that we really get excited about doing, and it's just an honor to be able to engage with these great partners and make a difference in the communities.
Obviously the ultimate goal is to educate the kids. It's interesting to hear you say that some communities, the teachers didn't feel confident that they could educate them the proper way. I'm guessing because they didn't feel they had the resources to do it. Other communities, there was such a high turnover rate of the teachers, as you said. I think one of the great traditions you have is bringing in the 50 state teachers of the year to the CFP National Championship game, giving them a fantastic experience, honoring them on the field. I mean, you watch them, their faces just light up. What's that been like?
It's been really cool. It kind of happened by happenstance, really. We got this call. We got to know the folks at the Department of Ed in DC during the Obama administration. We got this kind of wild call out of the blue that said that they were looking for someone to sponsor a reception at the White House for some teachers. And we were like, that's interesting. We'd love to do that. We wanted to see if we could put our signage up, but they told us we couldn't do that. But we sponsored this reception, and I got there, I remember, and I was waiting to go in and figure out what it was all about. And the person sitting next to me introduced herself as Johanna Hayes, and she was from Connecticut, and she was a big football fan, and she happened to be the National Teacher of the Year. And I said, well, you are actually the National Teacher of the Year, the one and only? And she said, yes, I am. And so I said, you know what? I think I could bring you to the football game. Would you come to the game in Tampa? She immediately accepted. We do the selfie thing right there at the White House. And then I'm sitting next to, I'm in line to meet the president, and had this similar kind of conversation with the guy. Next time I said, so what do you do? And he says, well, I actually run this organization that does this Teacher of the Year thing. And I go, oh, that's awesome. And he goes, I'm a big college football fan, actually. I'm from University of Washington, UW fan, and still keep my season tickets. And my wife hates it when I take the red eye from Virginia all the way back to he has 3 small kids, all the way back to Seattle to see, his Washington team play, and then take the red eye back. And the tickets come in the mail, and she says, every time they come in the mail, she goes, again, Chris, we're going to do this again. So we decided right there and then we're going to invite every teacher from all 50 states and a +1 to the game, and figure out how to pay for it later. We knew we would be able to find a sponsor for that one. And so it's just been amazing to have them at the game, and they add a lot of energy, and it's really a symbolic gesture as we recognize those outstanding teachers from all 50 states and the territories as well. We're basically saying is college football cares about teachers, and we're willing to stake out a space in the pregame to make that statement.
Britton, you've done so much in the first 7 years, but I know you're always looking forward. What are some of your goals in growing the CFP Foundation's partnership with bowl season, and how is that going to help you grow what you've been doing in the past even further in the future?
Well, I mean, we're adding incremental layers onto our work each year, and getting all the bowls involved is really a big deal. They have platforms that are, in some cases, really immense platforms. For them to be able to use those platforms to not only recognize teachers, but drive resources into their community to support K-12 education, there's a huge impact. It has been made, but it's going to be even bigger going forward. And, that's how we scale our work. We're a relatively small staff in the office in Dallas, but it's through these partnerships that we're able to deliver in all these communities across the country. So it's a huge deal for us, and we're so grateful to be able to do it. The pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for us is to be able to kind of transcend the kind of the sports space and be able to drive impact at a level that's just significant. That doesn't really depend on sports to drive our work, if you know what I mean. We need to be an educational nonprofit that can make a difference at a scale that is bigger than just being tethered to a football game.
Well, Britton, we're thrilled with the partnership. Our mission at bowl season is to pull together the 44 bowls and have them operate in as many ways possible for the common good of each other, the common good of the community, and to pull together under the umbrella of organizations like the CFP Foundation, Extra Yard for Teachers, and for us to be able to do that and to support you and your organization and do help you do more good. You've done a lot of good in the 7 years, and it's going to only grow from here. So, Britton, thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your time on the show today as well.
Thank you, Nick, and excited to kind of get this bowl season thing going. I think we're just kind of on the beginning of something that's going to be super great. So thank you for your time and having me on the show.
Thank you. And thank all of you for joining us for this week's Bowl Season Stories podcast. Please join us next week when we welcome another lineup of great guests. If you like the show, we'd appreciate you dropping a 5-star rating for the podcast. And as always, you can follow all the podcast and bowl season news on social media at Bowl Season. Thanks for listening.